as motherhood takes place in amazing diversity and variety, maybe we should start a sermon on families by pointing out that the definition of family, like the definition of marriage, has never been fixed. In the Bible, families are big and messy. Everywhere a child turns, there's a sibling, cousin, or aunt. Within biblical families, there are alliances and deceits, miracles, saints, goats, and asses, which is how many translations of the Bible refer to donkeys. Some of you today have families that are very biblical in these ways. But our families today probably do not include multiple wives, slave wives, and other slaves, or laws that treat daughters as property. Thank goodness. Those parts have changed. There are other differences too. In biblical times, multiple generations always lived together, and the law defined a person's obligation to the extended family. In Deuteronomy, it is written, "If brothers are living together, and one of them dies without a son, his widow must not marry outside the family. Her husband's brother shall take her and marry her." This was considered an entitlement of the widow. It was a law for her benefit. She left her own family at the time of marriage to join the husband's, and this law protected her place in it. If that failed, there were other laws stipulating how to protect the woman's place, and particularly her entitlement to offspring of the same lineage as her husband. It was all about family lines, but there were several ways to work the lines out. Today, biological families still have some legal importance, but at least in terms of marital obligations, it's more contained. There's no need for us ladies to make sure we find our boyfriend's brothers reasonably attractive. And biological relations certainly don't have as much social importance as they used to. We still make assumptions sometimes, such as when a stranger asks a dark-haired couple, "Where does your son get that red hair?" And the assumption is that somewhere in the parents' families there is a line of redheads, when in fact the hair may come from another source altogether, and the parents may or may not be ready to explain all of that in casual conversation. But despite the occasional self-inflicted awkwardness, we really do all know that there are lots and lots of ways to make a family. Adoption, intermarriage, informal partnerships, in vitro fertilization. There are families with children and without, families of 2 and 4 and 12 people, families made up of people with different genders, and families made up of people who shine too brightly to fit into one box with just one gender label on it. Today, fewer than 25% of households in the U.S. are married heterosexual couples with biological children. Every family is valid, every family is beautiful, and every family is a little bit dysfunctional. We'll come back to that. At some times in our lives, we find ourselves located in a family purely by fate. We're born into it. After that, we may spend a lifetime in the same circle of kinship. Or fate may quickly move us into the arms of different people, the ones who will raise us. Either way, in the beginning, we do not have much say. At other times, we are the active agents. We choose our spouses. We have the right, if not always the access, to reproductive health care that allows us to determine when to become parents. In some cases, we may even meet our children before embracing them into the family through adoption. Other times, we may make a new family of sorts, not by marrying or becoming parents, but by developing close ties with a new group of people, a circle of kindred spirits. This sermon was requested by that kind of family, a group of people who met one another through this church and formed a circle of kinship. They are members of the church who call themselves the Penguin family. At the social justice auction a few months ago, I put a sermon topic up for bid, and the Penguin family pooled their funds and won. This was the topic they chose: family by choice, family by chance. It's a great one because it gives us not only the opportunity to reflect on the roles of choice and chance in family, but also the opportunity to reflect on what it is that makes a family, besides the way the people in it come together for the first time. The fact is that whether it's our chosen family or a family arranged for us by fate, there are always elements of both choice and chance involved. So let's look at each kind. First, at the families that raise us, and then at the ones we create for ourselves as adolescents or adults. Thomas More writes that nothing is more suitable for the care of the soul than family, because in the context of family, all the particulars of life unfold. And in the families that raise us, he says, they unfold with people with whom you might not otherwise speak. The soul that Moore is talking about here is the part of you that wants meaning. It's relational. It lights up when you have a deep sense of who you are in relation to other people and to life. It lights up when you have a sense of whose you are, meaning not who owns you, but who do you matter to? Who cares about you? In the families that raise us, we experience life's ups and downs, its minor and major crises, its moments of beauty and mess and mystery, and through it all, we learn who we are and whose we are. At the same time, he says, all families are dysfunctional, and it's important that they are because we do not become soulful beings through perfect, easy lives. Every family has its imperfections. Families have tensions and bad habits. They have struggles with health or mental health or out-of-control adolescence or alcoholism. Someone goes to jail or someone doesn't show up to things or someone hurts someone else's feelings. Most families have unspoken interactions that are constantly happening below the surface. If you have a big, messy, religious, extended family like mine, sometimes people might even say, praise God, when they mean F you. Forget you. It becomes like a northern version of the South's bless your heart. You offered to host Christmas this year because you have a nicer home than we do? Well, praise God. What's that? You say I wear my weight well? Praise God. One time, one of my toddlers was throwing a nuclear tantrum in front of all the grandparents, aunts, and cousins, and as I tried to gain control of the thrashing limbs, somebody smiled at me and said in a sweet voice over the screaming, "Why, your child has the same temperament you did." Praise God. But you know what? We can laugh, too, at almost all of it. In fact, it's probably good for us. Through absurdity, we develop a sense of humor. And through hardship, we learn what is truly of value, and we may even develop closer bonds. In my family, as in others, we've had some true hardships, some histories of abuse and addiction, struggles with mental illness, but also triumphs, moments of healing and grace. I wouldn't be who I am without all of it, and the same goes for you and your family. Whether you feel the net result is good or bad right now, it just is. It is what it is. And new meaning can continue to grow out of it all your life. Moore draws a connection between the dys, D-Y-S, in dysfunctional, and dis, D-I-S, the old Roman name for the mythological underworld. Soul enters life from below, he says, through the cracks, finding an opening into the life at the points where smooth functioning breaks down. His words remind me of the Leonard Cohen lyrics, and if you know them, I invite you to say them with me. Ring the bells that still can ring. Forget your perfect offering. There is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. In other words, there's spiritual value in the shadow side that every family has. This isn't to say bad things happen for a reason. It is to say that if bad things are going to happen, and they are, we might as well find some strength or unexpected beauty in them. The element of choice lies in our response. Will we cherish the good? Will we allow our family by chance to bring out the best or the worst in us? We have a choice in that. It's possible we may have to make this choice from afar. The reality is, sometimes we have to distance ourselves to protect ourselves, and sometimes we love people who are impossible to live with. And sometimes, no matter how much we love someone, either we cannot fix them, or we cannot fix a relationship that has been broken. I'm going to say that again. Sometimes we love people who are impossible to live with. And sometimes, no matter how much we love someone, either we cannot fix them, or we cannot fix a relationship that has been broken. We cannot will it to happen. It doesn't mean it can never be healed, but that we aren't in charge of whether it is. It will require grace if it's going to happen. Some relationships aren't necessarily broken, but they aren't what we wish they were. A parent with mental illness, a brother whose addiction masks his true self. And so we have to figure out what we can handle. We can authentically love from some distance. We can love while taking care of ourselves, and occasionally we have to. Sometimes that's just how it is. Later, in the families we acquire by choice, we often seek not only to recreate what we loved in the family that raised us, but also to balance out what was missing or broken in them. We're looking for happiness, connection, and redemption. Those are some of the same things people come to church looking for, so it isn't surprising that we have not only the Penguin family, but the Lavender family, which embraces LGBTQ folks, and a parenting group or two that are becoming quite family-like. Recently, many of you have expressed a wish that there were more groups like these, as well as other social groups in the church. Launching them is one of our top priorities over the next couple of years. An intentional family of this kind is a great support to other families, especially to the nuclear families, a parent or two and kids, that live far away or are estranged from their larger extended family groups. These days, we're asking nuclear families to do what extended families in whole villages used to accomplish, to raise well-rounded kids who have a strong sense of themselves as community members. The technologist Dana Boyd points out that the nature of the community we identify with has dramatically changed, too. While it used to be the case that a group of people might all belong to the same town, school, soccer team, church, workplace, neighborhood, etc., now we live networked lives. Online, our networks overlap with our friends, but they're not the same. While people have always each had their own worlds, somehow identifying our communities as the ones we each interact with alone online feels social and lonely at the same time. The families we create in person, whether they're large or small, are shared experiences. We're all part of them together. We still face an element of chance in them, too. People are imperfect no matter how you combine them. Not only that, but lives and priorities change. People go through difficult or ugly phases, and in families of choice, we must decide whether to stay without the connections that bind us to families that raise us. Some of the same dynamics can play out in later ones. We may again love someone who's impossible to live with, but over time, we can discover that beauty and meaning and grace, which were evident from the beginning of our chosen families, shine brightly through their cracks, too. Both kinds of families, by choice and by chance, shape who we are, and they give us the opportunity to be better or worse versions of ourselves. Both kinds of families are built or remade over a long period of time. You can assemble a family structure by getting people together, but the soul of a family grows slowly. It's made through shared experiences. Like the time a member of the Penguin family became terminally ill. The family that had raised her was gone or estranged, and so the Penguins rallied around, and they took care of her all the way to the end. They held a memorial service, and her spirit is alive not only in their memories of her, but in the bonds between them that were strengthened then. It takes a long time to build a family, and they are always in progress, one way or another. Peace to you and your families, the ones by chance and the ones by choice, and the ones that have both. And may you also discover in this place the connections, friendship, and kinship you seek. And now we move to our flower communion.